Only 42% of Black Americans trust vaccines right now for COVID. And it's understandable given the history of this country going back to Tuskegee and beyond. But I wonder what we need to do about that.
Yes, we have to address the disparities that people of color face in our health system. There are reasons they don't want to go to the health system. And even when they go, they're discriminated against or there's bias. We have got to fix that if we're going to have all Americans be safe.
Disinformation has been rampant, to say the least, throughout this pandemic. And it's rampant, once again, when it comes to the vaccine. What are the consequences of that?
Death. Disinformation can equal death. So if you don't do the right things to keep yourself safe, you or a loved one may die. And that's why it's so discouraging to see so much disinformation spread out there. And what I tell everybody is ask your doctor. He or she knows what's best for you or your family. That's where you go for credible information, not the internet.
But unfortunately, a lot of people go to the internet, and you are formerly of the tech world. So I wonder if you could just speak to those in power at the tech companies, at the social media companies in particular right now. Do the social media companies, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, on and on, have a responsibility to do more right now, Melinda, in terms of getting this misinformation, this disinformation off their platforms?
They absolutely have a responsibility. Anybody who's spreading information in society has a responsibility to spread that information safely and equitably. And so, I think a bit the internet and the rise of social media has happened so quickly that really the regulations and the good policy making hasn't stayed out in front of it. And quite frankly, it needs to catch up.
But one thing we haven't spoken about, and I'm wondering whether it's time to talk about this, is a step up from the part of the governments on enforcement actions against fake news, right? Some of us, these are new regulations that come in place about how we deal with fake news. And maybe this is a time for us to showcase some cases where we are able to bring forward some bad actors and leave it before the courts to decide whether they have actually spread some fake news.
We're at a moment where the social media platforms have to step forward and recognize the moment to assert that they're a technology platform and not a broadcaster is over. They, in fact, have to be a participant in broadcasting accurate information and partnering with the scientific and health communities to counterweight, if not flood the zone, of accurate information, because to put the genie back in the bottle of the misinformation and disinformation is nigh impossible.
The distrust relates to the health system more generally.
A step up from the part of the governments on enforcement actions against fake news.
I think a couple of things we have to consider are, even before this began, the anti-vaccine movement was very strong, and this is something specifically through social media that has spread.
Welcome to Event 201.
Yes, they ran a simulation of exactly what we are seeing unfold right now before it happened. The pandemic exercise was conducted in partnership with the World Economic Forum and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.